You can clearly tell Google doesn't want to be left in the dust with this big 12 days of OpenAI, and they made some huge announcements this week too. So first, they unveiled Google Gemini 2.0, marking what they call their entry into the quote agentic era of artificial intelligence. This is the beginning of rollout of updates to their flagship AI models, and it introduces a range of capabilities that allow AI to take more direct actions on behalf of users. So right now at the heart of this initial release is Gemini 2.0 Flash, which is an experimental model that Google says is not only twice as fast as its predecessor, but can now also generate images and audio alongside text. This model can also directly use tools like Google Search and interact with third-party services. And you can currently access Gemini 2.0 Flash in experimental mode using a Gemini Advanced account, or you can go to Google AI Studio and play around with that. Now, at the same time, Google also released a stunning new feature that is attached right now to Gemini 1.5 Pro, which is called Deep Research. Deep Research is basically a super powerful research assistant that creates multi-step research plans, analyzes information from all across the web, and compiles comprehensive reports on complex topics. And it literally does that with dozens or hundreds of different web pages and sources. Third, we also heard that the company unveiled a research prototype called Project Mariner. And this is a Gemini-powered agent that can take control of your Chrome browser, move the cursor on your screen, click buttons, fill out forms, and navigate websites. So, Paul, that's a lot to unpack. First, let's maybe get your thoughts on the implications of Gemini 2.0. I mean, even though it's still early, we've just got Flash. Like, this seems like a pretty major release that we were expecting.
Yeah, there's a ton packed into it, and we'll put all the links in so people can kind of follow along and explore it. The one thing I'll tell you is the 2.0 Flash at the moment, at least my last looked, was only available in my personal Gemini account
Okay.
and not in the workspace account. So if you have a Google Workspace Gemini account, it's still just showing as advanced, and I'm pretty sure that's still 1.5, not 2. So I needed to go into there. But like you said, you can also go into the AI studio and there's all kinds of experimental things in there. So yeah, I think it's a really big deal and it's starting to show where their models are going. Now, again, you're not going to get the full 2.0. My best guess is April.
Yeah.
I just because I think that's when their big next conference is, their developer conference. And so I would guess that maybe it's going to be before that. I can't imagine it would be after that. So I would think what you're going to see is this like really full out multimodal model built from the ground up, trained on multimodal, able to output multimodal. And that's where all of these frontier models are going. And so again, it's one of those where you're seeing it, but it's still just the Flash version. It's still previews in a lot of ways. So I don't know, we're going to get the full thing for a little while here, but what they've released is already powerful. And so I would definitely play around with it. With everything that's been going on, I haven't had a ton of time to like run it through a bunch of use cases over the last few days, but over the holidays, it's definitely something that I'm going to be playing around with a lot.
Now, I am also blown away by deep research. And if I'm not mistaken, you are too. Can you kind of maybe give us a rundown of what you found so impressive about it so far?
Yeah. So deep research was one of those wow moments. And as we've said on the show before, we don't have too many of those. Like when you like pay as close attention to this space as we have to and we do, you feel like you see everything all the time, and it's hard to be like really impressed by something. This is the first time where I used a product since audio overviews, what
Hmm.
Google's Notebook LM product earlier this year, where you had that wow moment of like, oh, this like changes things. Like this is different than anything else we had. It's different than what ChatGPT can do. It's different than what Perplexity is doing, in my opinion. So yeah, I was definitely impressed by it. So what deep research does is it uses AI to explore complex topics, and then it kind of generates them in easy to read reports. And so it's using this Gemini model to do it. And so you put a question in, it creates a multi-step research plan. You can either revise or approve that plan. It then goes and executes that, and then it takes a few minutes. It goes and browses the web. It does the searching, the finding. It looks for interesting pieces of information. And it keeps repeating that process until you get the final product. So I was trying to figure out like, well, what could I do here? And I actually had a research project I was looking at, and I was looking into like pricing models, and I wanted to look like broadly. And then I wanted to go specifically into like 5 companies that I had in mind. And so this was something literally I was going to try and find time to do over the holidays. And I was like, seems like that's what this thing does. Let me give it a try. And so I put a very simple prompt in, and it went, and in about 3 to 5 minutes completed a research project that would have taken me 3 to 5 hours, easily 3 to 5 hours. So I put in a single prompt. It created the research plan, which again, it gives you the choice like edit or approve once it's ready. And the research plan is literally like, I'm going to do these 6 things. Like, is this what you want me to do? And if you wanted to do something different, it'll do it. So it then visited, analyzed, and summarized over 100 websites. And then it turned it into a Google Doc for me that I could review and edit from there. And this is, if you go back a couple episodes, Mike, you'll remember I said this was exactly one of the advantages for Gemini and Google is if I create something in ChatGPT, it doesn't live in a productivity doc that I can work with.
Right.
It lives as this thing I have to copy and paste over into either Microsoft Word or Google Docs. Well, now I don't have to worry about that. It just automatically creates. It's like nice and streamlined. So my initial reaction was like, this is far beyond anything anybody's doing. And it has the benefit of Google's search dominance and accuracy in theory. Like I immediately trust that Google is going to find a way to solve for hallucinations and errors better than any other company because that's what they do in search. And so, you and I had a talk right away, Mike. It's like, shoo, man, how can we be using this in content production, course creation, podcast, preparation? So we're already thinking about research, publishing, and education, how a product like this that we know is only going to get better, how it can really change the way we do things. So again, I would definitely say, give this a test, come up with like a use case or go online or I mean, ask Gemini, hey, I want to test deep research. What would be an example? Use dummy data if you have to, or,
Yeah.
a real use case. It will still make mistakes. Like I'd have to say, like, if you're going to use this in your business or for your career or for schoolwork or whatever, it's going to make mistakes. It'll still have errors. So do humans. So like, is the error rate going to be lower than a human? Maybe in some instances. It probably just depends on what you're trying to do with it. But the human still has to remain in the loop. You still have to use your experience and expertise to decide the quality of the output. You need to guide the research plan. So this isn't replacing, but this changes the way research is done. And I can definitely see it transforming us. What about you, Mike? I know you've played around with it too.
Yeah, similar initial reactions. I would say too, it just excites me in the sense of not only doing these complicated and complex research projects so much faster, but also what it enables when you probably start combining it with other AI tools, right? Like
Yeah.
these other systems and models thrive on giving context and information. So instead of me, I don't know, using a tool like ChatGPT or Claude, and prompting it with a couple sentences like, hey, I'm trying to like write something about, I don't know, the energy sector. I could be like, oh, okay, like we're writing something about the energy sector. By the way, here's 7 to 10 pages of perfectly researched information based on 100+ different websites.
Yeah.
It really opens up just so many more combinatorial possibilities, I think, in my mind, that I'm really excited to explore.
Yeah. I mean, I was trying to think back, like if we'd have had this when we wrote our book in
Oh my God. Could you
2022,
imagine? Yeah, right.
I mean, so if you combine, I would say like, so I've written 3 books and I would say, roughly between 50 and 60,000 words each. My guess is they take roughly 400 to 500 hours to
Mhm.
do like the full planning and production of the book, like writing of it and the research. I don't know how much of that would be shaved off with a tool like this, but it wouldn't be insignificant. Like most of the process of writing the book is the research, in my opinion. Like it's
Yeah.
developing the initial outline and then doing the research, not the first party stuff where you're going and conducting interviews and things like that's obviously not replacing this, but I almost think like you'd have way more time to go do those things because so much of the research, like I used to keep Evernotes on this stuff. Like that was the productivity tool I would use. And I would have to create all these folders and then I'd go do the research and I would put them in Evernote and then I would have to go through and do summaries of them and I would print them out and I would highlight them. Like I'm not joking if I were to say if my second book I wrote by myself was 400 hours, 150 to 200 of that was probably researching, organizing the research,
Right.
extracting insights from the research. Writing the writing part is easy. Like if you're a writer, like that's the easy fun part. It's everything else that goes into it that is where all the time goes in.
It'll be interesting too to see this play out in some of the areas that, I know we're interested in getting more into, because I look at something like this too and I think, wow, this just turned me into a one-man public analyst firm, right?
Yeah.
Like in the
Oh
sense of
yeah,
I don't need a research team of 20 people to go do this. I mean, it's all public information, of course.
man.
There's more to analysis than just that, but it's pretty darn interesting to me.
Well, yeah, and then last week you and I had on top of that, and this isn't in our notes, I don't think, but we have CB Insights,
Right.
as a research platform for the company because we do a lot of research for what we write, and then we look into a lot of companies. Um, and so we had a call with them last week, and they were showing us their new AI capabilities includes like a chat CBI, which is connected to their proprietary database.
Yep.
And so like, I think your head and my head last week were in the same place of like, oh my gosh, like the future of analyst firms and research is like
Yeah.
before our eyes being reinvented and how you do that. So yeah, when we think about like industries or business models that are going to be impacted
Mhm.
very quickly, you could look at tools like this and say, wow, you gotta reimagine that business model real fast, which is exactly what we're doing with Smarter X. That was the
Right.
whole premise. And again, like I some of this stuff I think is maybe obvious what we're doing, or maybe other people like they don't stop and think or they don't really care that much. But like from day one, I built Smarter X to reinvent the analyst firm. Like
Yep.
we want to be a research firm, but we want to do it faster, like real time research. So it's not stale 6 month old stuff.
Yep.
Like we wanted to find a way to bring this stuff to market fast, and this is the kind of tool that enables that.
So just very quickly to wrap this up, I mean, obviously Project Mariner, it's a research prototype, but
Yeah.
this has like, in my mind, like huge implications. I immediately just start thinking of everything we do as marketers. Like, isn't this combined with like deep research? Like, am I ever visiting a website ever again? Or are my agents
I
going to
don't
do
know.
it for me?
Yeah, that's so. I mean, this is computer use again. Like we talked about computer use with Anthropic. We've talked about with OpenAI. We said Google was working on this. We didn't know it was called Project Mariner, but like everybody is working on this. We have known that for a while, for like
Mm,
7 years. We knew it was happening. It's just the breakthroughs are happening now. So yeah, I think the unique thing here is you trust Chrome. You probably trust Google more than you might trust some others. So you could start to see this really impacting, search, online behavior. You and I coming from the world of like marketing and the analytics data and organic traffic, search traffic. Like, is it really humans coming to our site anymore? Or was it just Google Gemini deep research that hit our site 5 times?
mm.
Um, I don't know. And then even with like the Google deep research and Project Mariner, do do we end up clicking on the things that's surfacing for
Right.
us? Like, does
Right.
it or does it just like remove the need? We trust Google so much that we're not going to click on any of the links. Like, we don't care. Or maybe you'll spot check 3 or 4 and be like, yeah, they nailed it. Like, we're good.
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, I don't know when Mariner's going to come out. I would guess sometime next year again, just because everybody's there. But it's also dangerous. Like, this computer use is a really risky endeavor, and there's lots that has to be solved by these companies before you can like roll this out at mass market scale
Mm.
and not have those. Because we're not going to get in today, but there's been a whole lot of stuff in the last few days about the ability to jailbreak all of these models and get them to do terrible things and actually expose their instructions in them and things like that. And so that's a concern here is like the cybersecurity risk that goes into allowing a computer to access your screen for you and things like that.